Week 17 waiver wire pickups before rosters freeze for the off season. Now, a lot of leagues that are still done, there might be some consolation rounds. So if your league championship's there, if your roster isn't frozen yet, make these moves if you're in a keeper league, because not only are these good players this week, but they're good stashes for the future. Whether or not you keep them or use them as trade bait, you can do that. So, I think there are a couple slam dunks on here that are still going to be available on waivers. You might have missed on one of them, but David, why don't you go first and give me kind of, one or two of your top guys, and I'll follow up. Hopefully we'll get to, 5 or so by the end of the show.
Yeah, I tried to keep these, I wouldn't say shallow leagues, but we're definitely not talking like deep 24 roster slot dynasty leagues here, because the waivers have been pretty much cleared out. We're talking about like shallower dynasty leagues, keeper leagues where maybe you can only keep like 6 to 8 players, something like that. So these are guys that are still probably, I tried to at least approach it that way, still probably available in most of those leagues. I think Jameis Winston still deserves a speculative ad at quarterback, as well as Taysom Hill, just because Breeze, we don't know how this playoffs is going to span out. He could retire after this year. It's absolutely on the table. And whoever's starting for the Saints next year, I mean, they're going to be valued highly as a fantasy quarterback. So I think I would I don't know if I would prefer Taysom, but I think he's got the higher upside if you're stashing fantasy quarterbacks. And he's probably, I wouldn't say less rostered. Winston's probably less rostered, but I just think Taysom Hill's got more upside, dual threat upside than Winston. So I would prefer him if I was taking a shot. But I think Winston probably get a chance somewhere else too. If not, higher chance of landing the job next year.
Sure. I think, with respect to that, I think we kind of saw where Peyton's head's at when Breeze went down. If they have a week to game plan, he wants to go to Hill. If it's an in-game injury, I think he'd rather go to Winston, because Winston executes more of the Drew Brees downfield, let's just say heavy passing. And Taysom Hill is more of the weapon, and I think he would use him next year more like a Lamar Jackson. And that, maybe Latavius Murray is worth a look again. I don't know what his contract status is. I didn't even look at it, but just kind of brought it up because Taysom Hill, they like to thump a little bit more with Latavius Murray. We were talking about that weeks ago. And if Hill could be the starter next year, and he could be, that would be kind of like a really sneaky, almost like inexpensive waiver wire grab for Latavius Murray that could carry into next year. Although people will probably be low on him anyway going into the draft. Let me give you one at quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. I know he's a free agent, but when he's come back, daily fantasy, you know how it goes. Like, you're always just like, who are the best daily fantasy values? It's always Trubisky because everybody hates him. So do I think that I would keep him next year? Probably not. But if you're looking for somebody that can give you value this week that might be a trade chip in deep leagues or something next year, if the Bears keep Nagy, and if they make the playoffs, I think they will, and Trubisky's been playing this well since, reassuming the starting quarterback role, he might have some value. Look, I don't like it. Like, I hope you picked up Jalen Hurts when you had the shot. Let me say that. But, if we're looking at quarterbacks,
there's not a whole lot.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot.
It's tough to tell with these quarterbacks because there's a lot of incoming rookies. I feel like I was rambling there a little bit for Winston and Hill, because it's hard. I mean, who knows where Sean Payton's mind is at too? Yeah. Like, it seems like he really likes Taysom Hill for some reason way more than the rest of us. So maybe he wants him as a long-term guy. I mean, but there's a lot of incoming rookies, so it's tough to figure out which quarterback to stash, if any. I only had one more on my list.
Go for it.
That was Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
I like Jacoby Brissett more, I think, more than most people. He has not really been placed into the greatest situations in his career. He was thrown in, or I believe it was as a rookie for the Patriots when he played, and he played decently for the Patriots. And then he was traded with that whole Andrew Luck fiasco. And it was like week 1 he was traded, like after the season had already started, and he was starting the next week for the Colts. He battled through it, and then to start last year, he looked really good for like 6 weeks. Like the first 6 weeks, it was like, oh, Jacoby Brissett is legit. He's here to stay. He's completing a high percentage of passes. He's not turning the ball over. He's throwing touchdowns. And then Hilton got hurt. I believe Jack Doyle got hurt. Marlon Mack missed some time. And the offense just like cratered completely around them. But this guy has showed that he has some talent, and he's willing. At least I don't know how able he is as a runner. He's more of a Jameis Winston type runner where he's not exactly able, but he's willing. He's willing to put his body on the line around the goal line. He's willing to scramble for a little bit of yardage. I think there's upside in that Colts offense, especially if Rivers retires. Yeah, right. If they say we're done with Rivers, or they just replace Rivers in some way or another, and Jacoby Brissett is going to be the starter next year, then I think there's upside with him.
Yep. If you're looking for, I agree. And Brissett was one thing, and he is a free agent. So he could go anywhere. Most likely scenario for him, I think the best landing spot for him as a starter would be in Indianapolis. Just stay with the coaching staff there. But we'll see what happens with Rivers, free agency, all that stuff.